It seems to me that gay marriages would lead to more gender confusion among children, especially if they have two moms, but one of them is a dad, or two dads, and one of them is supposed to be a mom. Do you see that in that way?
I think it will. They call us heterosexist, but you asked a great question. Two men are married. Who takes the role of the woman versus the man? Now, many of those guys would say, you're sexist or heterosexist to say that. No, no, no. I'm saying who's going to be nurturing in a way that a woman
does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and who's going to be the person that brings more provision in the house, or authority and affirmation in the ways that good dads who are really there do. And I think you've hit on something here that folks will say, well, it'll take care of itself. It's better to have a loving, whatever loving means, couple. And I think what you're going to find, because we haven't had statistical evaluation of what gay families, quote unquote, supposed to bring forth, we're playing with a terrible, terrible experiment.
What about civil unions? Are those acceptable?
Well, I don't think it's acceptable in the eyes of God. I think, however, that the gays have taken that off the table for real discussion. Even though President Obama wisely says, hey, I'm not for gay marriage, but what about trying this? He's bringing that as a reasoned compromise, but the other side is not compromising. They're saying it's my civil right, absolutely, to have the whole enchilada. So I'm concerned that in my debates and discussions that they don't want the middle ground. They're not going to hear anything else. And so in this battle in Washington and around the country, we've got to fight it and fight all things that look like it because of their intolerance.
Because this is the District of Columbia, the nation's capital, if same-sex marriages become legal here, this is going to be a magnet to draw a homosexual to come to get married from across the country, and this possibly could become the gay capital of America. What do you think about that?
I think you're right. I think that's what's at stake here. My opponents have been very, very wise in how they've strategically crafted laws. They've spent money here in the city. Gertrude Stein Association has given money virtually to every council member over the years and has gotten a voice to them. And that's why I think the battle is so severe, because the people now wake up one morning and say, hey, I want a word. I want to say something. And they can't speak. And let me back up from that point and say, same-sex marriage is the issue of the day, but many people who've lived here for many years and around the region, like yourself, would know that the city has been recently come under the control of a privileged minority. And in that privileged minority of high-salaried folk, K Street lawyers, folk who have access to money and information, it's begun to take on a whole life of its own that's not like the Washington that many of us grew up in. I've been living predominantly in the suburbs for nearly 30 years. And as now an official DC resident, I recognize that this would be the place that even if folks say, I'm against same-sex marriage, but it's not number one thing on my list, this is the place to start taking the power back to the people if ever there was an issue. And if folks believe that DC needs to come back under the rule of people who are in the city, the average citizens, this is an issue to fight on.
So many people say that people who are against gay marriages are homophobic or haters. But I would think that if you love the person, then you're compelled to act because you want to save souls. Is that a message that's hard to get across?
Well, it's interesting you just say that, because our opponents cast us as haters. I've been in all the alternative papers, sometimes on the front page, week after week after week. And as we've said, my address put up there, and they write stuff like vitriolic, homophobic, So with our groups, we have a covenant that people have to sign where we say to one another, we are pro-traditional marriage, don't believe in gay marriage, but we say we will not talk in a negative way about anybody who is gay. We will not deride, we will not speak down of, we will not denigrate these folks as individuals. And because our responsibility as representatives of Christ is to present an answer, present the gospel, and not to get into name calling or venomous outbursts. And that's been good. Now, we can't control others. I'll simply say that in the marketplace of ideas, there are many people who are bitter, who've had their own life history. They lash out. But I would tell Christians, be bold in your faith and be bold to say, hey, we love individuals, but we're concerned for our children and our children's children that we make the right choice now.